First, I'm going to show you how to create an API key that will allow Wappler to speak to AWS. So I created a new account on AWS and I've signed in, and this takes you to the AWS Management Console. You'll see, for those that are unfamiliar with AWS, you'll see in the top here that when you create items, they are region specific. However, when you're creating a user, it actually is global. So you don't need to worry about this right now, but you will need to worry about this in the future. If you ever want to create specific items, such as a virtual machine or something, you'll need to select which region it's created in. But for now, on this screen, what we'll do is, you see IAM here, we're going to click on that. If you don't see it on the screen for whatever reason, you can search for it up in the top up here, and you'll see it comes up there. Identity Access Management. We come in, we're going to click Users on the left. You'll see we've got no users at the moment, so we're going to add a user. I'm going to call it Wappler. Click Next. Now we need to give it some permissions. I'm going to attach policies directly. This means we're going to reuse some policies that are already defined inside of AWS. So from here, I'm going to search for Amazon EC2 full access. You'll see there it appears. Now it's worth pointing out that this basically gives anyone with this API key full access, as it says there, to all the services inside of AWS. So you really want to be careful with regards to where you put this key and who you share it with. There may be a slightly more restricted policy that we can use for the activities that we're performing in Wappler, and if anyone knows what that is, then please do let me know. We're going to select it, go to Next, and you'll see there's a summary there. We can add tags that can allow us to group resources across anywhere across AWS, but for now we don't need to use any tags. So I'm just going to click Create User. You'll see that the user is now created, and so if I click on it, here it is, the security credential. Click on that, and I want an access key, so we'll create an access key, and this will be for an application running outside of AWS. Click on Next. So let's click on this. Deploy applications from Wappler. Press Create Access Key, and you'll see that it's given us the access key here, which you want to copy and paste that somewhere for future use. You can actually come back in and get that key at any time. Obviously, we just want to copy it. And we press Done. So now we have our API key and secret access key, and the next step is to connect Wappler to AWS for it to create our Docker machines to deploy to. So I've opened up Wappler. You can do this from an empty project or a project that you already have running. This project is in the state that I left it from my previous video, where I applied user auth. And so from here, to connect it to AWS, you click on Project Options. You go to Targets. We're going to click create a new target. Going to call it Production. So it's going to be a Docker server, and the connection is going to be remote. And we are going to go over sockets, and we're going to manage the Docker machines. I already have some here, but I'm going to create a new one. I'm going to call it AWS Demo. Leave that as AWS. The access key and secret key I will insert from the keys that I just created. Here we go. Put that in. I'll leave the region as Europe, London. And for size, there's a variety of sizes you can choose from. Obviously, it will depend on the type of workload that you plan to run on this machine as to how powerful you want it to be. However, I think the first couple are at least fall under the free tier, the free 12-month tier. So I'm just going to pick the first one here. I'll leave OS and disk size and everything else as is. And before I press create, it's just worth saying that the name, if you put things like space or underscore, it'll complain, it won't work properly. So you got to kind of keep it down to bare minimum alphabet and numeric characters. So here we go. I'll press create. this point, as you can see, our Docker machine is now created. So we go back to the list, and you can see it here in our list. Now, it's really important to take note of the TCP IP address, and I'm going to show you why now. Having clicked on the entry, I'm going to go up to edit IP address, and that's just going to allow me to select and copy it. You now need a domain to point to that IP address, and you'll see why that's important in a second. And so I've got a domain here, no-code.com, where the O is actually a 0. And just to show you where that points at the moment, if I come over to a terminal, I type host no-code.com, you'll see it points to 192.64.119.230, and I need that to point to the IP address for the Docker machine that was created in using Wappler. So I'm going to come over here. They already have 2 default records for this domain, but they're not the ones that I want, so I'm going to get rid of those. Yep. And I'm going to create some new ones. They're going to be an A record. Host is going to be, I'm going to do star. We'll put the IP address in there. We press OK. We'll add another one, A record again. This time www. The IP address in, okay, and I'm going to do one more just to cover all bases. We may not need all of these, but I'm doing it just for just to make sure it all works. So with those three entries as A records and the IP address for our Docker machine in AWS, what we need now is to wait for the DNS records on the internet to update, so we will get that IP address back from the domain itself. So this could take any amount of time. It could be a minute, it could be instant, or it could be half an hour or even more. So let's go back over to the terminal. We rerun our command, and you'll see in this case it's now got the IP address of the Docker machine in AWS, which is great news. Coming back over to Wappler, what we're now going to do is manage services, and we're going to get it to install Portainer and traffic, and I'll explain what these are once once they're up and running. So let's put an email address in. We're going to want the dashboards for these, and we want it to be secured. So for traffic, we're going to create a user called admin, and we're going to give it a password. And the dashboard URL is going to be traffic.nocode.com. And sorry, we're going to go back up here and put the domain in for Portainer, portainer.nocode.com. And you'll see that everything we need to put is in there now, and we press apply. It's all been deployed. So from here, we're going to go to our browser. First, we'll go to Portainer. And you'll see on first access, it's asking for a password to be created. So the key thing you need to do here is, as soon as you've installed Portainer, get to this site quickly to create that password before somebody else randomly does. Excellent. Portainer gives you a view of the containers running on your Docker machine. So if we click on this one here and click on images first, you'll see that there's images being installed in here for Portainer and for traffic, so that your Docker machine itself is running Portainer and traffic, and those images are then instantiated as containers. And so we have 2 containers running, traffic and Portainer. When we install our Wappler app, you'll have another container running here, which will be the Wappler app that's installed. In fact, you can install as many Wappler apps as you like, and you'll see them all as individual containers running inside of here. So from here, we'll also check out traffic. We already created the username and password. And traffic is the service that deals with all of your encrypted traffic, your SSL. So if we click on HTTP, you'll see that we have Portainer, we have rules for Portainer, and we have rules for traffic. When requests come in, traffic will look for the domain that's specified on those requests and then forward it on to the specific container that's running inside of Portainer. We'll now deploy our Wappler application. So if we close this, now we're back at this screen. We can continue putting the rest of the information in. For use Docker machine, we're going to pick our AWS demo. You'll see that it has populated some of the necessary fields in here. For deploy Docker name, just leave that blank. It'll generate that for you. Down in web, you'll see that we're going to deploy it as a Node.js container. But what we're actually going to do is get rid of this IP address. We'll put our domain in there and we'll make it HTTPS. And there's one key step here, and that is to remove this port number. By removing this port number, that gives traffic the power to manage dynamic port numbers for the various containers that are running inside of the Docker machine. For a database, for this app at the moment, I don't want a database running in here, and in fact, I usually would run a database in a different cloud-based service rather than have it installed as another container alongside the app container, which is what this will do. It'll create a database container. But so in this case, I don't want one, so you'll see that's empty. And having filled all that information in, I can now press save. And that target has now been saved. So if I come down to the left here, you'll see that as well as development, I now have production. And so we're ready to deploy. But before we do that, we may as well add something that we can see to confirm that it's our page here. So in fact, I'll just type something in here. I'll do hello world and save that. And you see it says hello world there. Okay, so we now have our hello world page. We have our production target, and I'll press deploy. So the app container has been created and deployed. If we go back to our browser, you'll see in traffic, we now have additional rules in here for the nocode.com host. And in fact, if we go to Portainer, here is our application that has now been deployed in as a container alongside our other ones. So all that leaves us to do is come up here, type our domain in, press enter, and you'll see that we now have hello world. And that is our Wappler application now deployed onto the web in AWS and pointed to by a custom domain with SSL in place. Connection is secure.